Howdy there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Gamer Reviews Books Badly. I am the Middle Management Gamer. Today we'll be reviewing Blackwater the Complete Saga by Michael McDowell, originally released in 6 volumes in 1983. I've never actually got a hold of any of the volumes or even the volumes as a entity. I have it on Audible and I've listened to it multiple times. So, as always, I'm going to play some Diablo 4 while I ramble on. So, without further ado, let's get started. Blackwater. So this is an interesting book. It is set in the beginning half of the 20th century. Starts out in Easter Sunday of 1919. So, it's in the past, which, the time it's set is kind of important, as several events like the Depression and, the stock market and all that, along with World War II, serve as catalysts for events that occur. This is a genre piece. Kind of hard to discuss the genre because it kind of covers so many different genres in it. It's part romance, part horror, part historical fiction, but it really, to me, it's more horror than anything, and the writer writes horror fiction, but it's got the feel of like old school Dracula or Frankenstein, or even Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, whereas, there's, kind of romance to it. You kind of feel for the characters. There's a backdrop of this character loves this character, but not really. It's not overdone. What it feels like to me is kind of like soap opera, and people use that term like it's a negative thing. Me personally, I love a good soap opera, really, because it's such a long, epic piece when you watch a soap opera. For me, it was Young and the Restless growing up, because that's what my mom watched. And I didn't watch it often, because, of course, I was in school. But during the summer, after I had my summer lessons that were inflicted upon me by my mother, which were great, learning all the state capitals and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure I can do them all still, but probably could. They're back in there somewhere. I hadn't replaced them with recipes for chicken and dumplings and whatnot. So if I was sick or I was out of school for the summer, we would watch Price is Right, as you're wont to do. And then after the Price is Right, there'd be 30 minutes of news, which would be the time where we prepare lunch, and then we'd sit down and have lunch while we watched Young and the Restless. And I really enjoyed Young and the Restless because there's some really round characters in there. And again, I think sometimes people think soap operas and they think trite, and they don't really give it the time it deserves. But, again, there's some really round characters. You get to know the characters. You get to, grow up with them. And my personal favorite was Victor Newman, who really was more of I want to say he's a lawful evil type character. He's not really a good guy, but he's rich and his family and all the exploits that go on with his family. And my dad, as a kid, would talk a lot about Dark Shadows. He'd race home from school to watch Dark Shadows. It was kind of like a horror soap opera that he enjoyed, and I was always kind of fascinated by the idea of a horror soap opera. And to me, that is what Blackwater is. It's a really well done horror soap opera. Again, don't think negatively about that connotation that soap opera has to some people. Just think sprawling epic with tons of characters that you get to learn about. Some of them start out as static, and then, you get to like them, and then you realize there's more to them than the face value that you get. They become round characters, fully developed, flushed out. So basically, the story starts off with 2 men in a boat. Easter Sunday in Perdido, Alabama, on the Blackwater, which is kind of like a river that flows around the town. And in this situation, it flowed over and through the town and completely flooded everything. So that's why these two gentlemen are in the boat. Now, the first character you're really introduced to is Oscar Caskey. He is the first son, or the current, basically, heir to the Caskey family. The Caskey family is a rich family that owns one of the three lumber mills in the outlying town and counties. So I'm not super familiar with Alabama or Florida, to be completely honest with you. Geography's never been my strong suit. But basically, this part of Alabama is right on the border of Florida, the Pensacola type area and whatnot. Like I said, I haven't looked at a map to kind of figure out exactly, but there is an author's note, and he says that the town really does exist, and it's not exactly where he says it is. So, creative license. But again, Oscar's in this boat with one of his servants that he kind of grew up with. So he's kind of like a servant, but he's friend, paid servant. One of the premier members of the black community in the area. And they're kind of just looking at the town so they can give information back to people who live in Perdido and are up at the church. They took shelter during the flood. Most of the town is destroyed. A lot of the houses are flooded. Baptist Bottom, which is where the poor families live in town, basically completely destroyed. And the Caskey's house are flooded, and the mills have been severely messed up. They didn't do a very good job taking care of their documentation and whatnot. A lot of the wood got warped. I think the Caskeys did a better job setting up for success than some of the other ones, which is why they last longer. But I digress. I'm just kind of rambling here. So Oscar is rowing around, or his friend slash servant Bray is actually paddling them around, and he sees a figure in the window of the local hotel, and he has Bray boat him over there so he can see who it is. And it turns out to be a woman, Eleanor Caskey. Eleanor is really the protagonist of the piece, and right off the bat, you get the feeling from Bray, who kind of seems to have a sixth sense that something ain't right here. But Oscar is immediately just drawn to this woman, and you know that they're just going to get together. I mean, it's the primary catalyst to the book. So basically, this is where it starts. They get her out of there. They send Bray back to the hotel to get her bags. And when they get back there, Bray's kind of looking around the hotel room, and he realizes there's no way that this woman had survived in there. So you already get the sense that there's something not quite right about Eleanor. And, it just kind of sits there in the back of your head. And you're introduced to all the various characters. Most of the characters are Caskeys or belong to the family around the Caskeys. There's the DeBourdonnays, there's the Doctor family, and I can't remember the other mill owner's family's name, but, that's primarily who you deal with. So James Caskey is the oldest male Caskey heir right now, and he is married, has a daughter, but his wife isn't around, and it's kind of let on that he is effeminate, gay, obviously, or really just doesn't really need to be with anyone, but he likes to collect his silver and his serving dishes and very nice things, and his wife's out of town, and he raises his daughter the way he sees fit. James's sister, Mary Love, is the primary antagonist for the first half of the book. And basically, right off the bat, she does not like Eleanor Danner. She sees the way that she's looking at her son, and Mary Love is a very controlling Southern mama. She is the matriarch of the family, and basically you get the sense, and I mean, you don't just get the sense, it's pretty much spelled out for you, that in this town, men are weak and women run the show, and basically everything is controlled by women. The men run the mill and everything, but they're just kind of figureheads. And that's kind of where you are introduced to the characters. And basically, it's a whole lot of fighting between Eleanor and Mary Love. Mary Love doing vindictive things to kind of try to get rid of her. And then when it's, seen that Eleanor and Oscar are going to get married, Mary Love does everything she can to delay it. And, all these great characters are introduced throughout. And I don't want to sit here and discuss all the characters because there's so many. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this book. A friend of mine who I used to work with years ago, actually, she didn't suggest it to me, but her suggestion came to me through Goodreads or whatnot. And I reached out to her, and I saw it was on Audible, and it's 37 some odd hours long. And normally, if a book isn't 30 hours long when it's being read to you, I'm not really interested. So she said it was really good. I really appreciate the recommendation. Really good recommendations on books from her. If you're watching this, listening to me stumble and hem and haw through my description of the book that you love, don't take offense. I really enjoyed it. Just there's so much to talk about. There's so many back elements that are discussed. It's very much like a Stephen King book to me in how all these characters come together and how he manages to have so many round characters in such a large cast. There are static characters, kind of like byblows that aren't really important, but for the most part, everybody's round, flushed out, fully developed. The other thing I really enjoy about this is it really seems like nobody's off limits. Like, sometimes somebody will just get killed and you're just like, wow, did they really just kill that person? I didn't think they would do that. So there's a lot of other elements and things to it. Again, dealing with family, dealing with children, and like when you have such a large family like that, grandmothers help to raise grandkids because there's just so much going on, and people had to go to work. And this book kind of talks about that. It's a little more sinister about it, but like children being swapped to other households for raising. These rich people just do crazy stuff, and I'm just like, wow. But I really enjoy all the characters. I really enjoy the book. Like I said, it's not one of those books I feel is overly scary or frightening. But it's got horror elements. There's lots of dismemberment, people being crushed, drowned. There's shape-shifting. There's magic, witchcraft. This book really has everything you want. It's got kind of, love in the backstory, but love isn't really the driving sense. But again, it's an empowering book. It really... I keep saying empowering. I'm not sure if that's exactly the word I want. It's a book that allows and discusses and talks about many ideas that should not be taboo, that should be widely accepted. There's no reason why men or women should be better or worse than each other. Everyone should be equal. People should be allowed to love who they want. And in the backdrop to horror, I always say that the horror genre is the one that is most set in the real world. And that's why I enjoy it. People dealing with family issues is a major problem in this story. Just the fights that go on with, son and mother, the wife and the mother-in-law, the children, the grandchildren, people who feel like they weren't treated properly by their family members, vengeance, getting back, forgiveness after years and years. I mean, the book really has everything. I give it a 5 out of 5. I definitely suggest reading it if you can find a copy. My understanding is it's hard to find, but they have it on Audible. I got it for a credit. I've listened to it probably 4 times through already. Again, it's 37 hours, so it's a good listen if you're a commuter like I am. Definitely take the time. If you're looking for a good body count, there are lots of deaths and murders. Mostly it's people who are getting what they deserve. Sometimes it's people that you might like and care about, and it's vengeance in that situation. There are talks about rape, so if that kind of stuff disturbs you, unfortunately, this may not be the book for you. But that's a part of life, and it sucks. And luckily, the people who commit these heinous acts are dealt with accordingly and in a way deserving. So, like I said, I hope you'll give the book a try. I look forward to trying to read some of Michael McDowell's other work. My friend suggested some other pieces to me, and I know he had a piece come out not too long. Well, it came out several years ago, and Stephen King's wife actually finished it for him since he passed away, so it was released posthumously. So I'm interested to read some of those. Again, it's Blackwater, the Complete Saga, and that's it for my book review. But anyway, tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.